Amalia is an outstanding character and has brought much to Parkway West. Going back to the word caring, how do you define it? Do you care about the memories you instill in your student body? You say you do. The pictures of all red and one blue gown demonstrates to the graduating seniors that the administration cares. Be color blind. Regarding that picture, I strongly believe that from the May graduation in 2018 and going forward, people may or may not see that blue cap and gown. Those who notice and understand the goals and missions of Parkway School District will respond by thinking that the leaders of the school had a very good reason to allow one student to graduate in blue. I firmly believe that there will be no broad negative response. I ask you, did you truly hear the words of Dr. Watson this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Next, Samuel Cho. You can start. Go ahead.
Good evening, Board. My name is Samuel Choi. I'm a senior at the University of Missouri, but more importantly, I'm back to my stomping grounds. I was a graduate of Parkway Central High School in 2013, and basically everything from there has just been really good. However, today on Snapchat, I noticed that there was an article that came out, and that really did upset me. I'm angered by it, and I'm also kind of ashamed that this school was built on caring, on loving people. And during class of 2013, I could tell you there's so many people that made me feel welcome, made me feel loved, and not once did I experience any hate. Yes, we had our beefs. We went back and forth, but we never went below the line. And I'm just here right now. Also, my friends were saying, hey, we can't be here. You're representing class of 2013. I'm still showing that same love everywhere, and they also want that to continue. Now, all I'm asking is that once this investigation does get handled, the person who did it gets punished, not severely, but more just like the right way, and setting example that, again, this school is built on love, built on caring, also helping out one another, but more importantly, that's what being a human is. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And what I forgot to say to Mr. Siegel, and I'll say to each of you, is the board will reply to each of your statements in writing. Carol Baumueller? I'd like to say Baumueller. Thank you.
Good evening. I do not have a student in your school system, but a dear friend of mine has a son at Parkway West High School. He's a beautiful African-American young man, and he is subjected to almost daily racist taunts. It breaks my heart that he is being subjected to abuse in a school, your school. Your job is to ensure good education and the welfare of all your students. You are failing. You're failing with your African-American students, and you're also failing with your white students. Racism eats at everyone's heart, most especially African-Americans, but also white hearts. It is unacceptable that any of your students feel it's okay to use racist slurs to taunt others. I know this is a pervasive problem, not just today's one incident. So you need to figure out how to address it directly in a system-wide way. Character education is great. Racism has to be addressed directly. This is not a quick and easy process, but you must embark on it now within yourselves, your teachers, and your staff, and your students. Racist language and bullying cannot be tolerated, and whoever engages in this needs immediate re-education. I urge you to utilize restorative justice practices to address this, rather than the same old suspension method. Adults need to learn to model loving and inclusive practices, especially in conflict situations, and you need to teach students to do the same. If you do not change how your staff and students interact with each other, our local and national divisions and problems will continue to grow. If racism is to be eradicated, it must begin in prosperous, majority white communities like those in the Parkway School District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but this is our meeting, and we ask that you not do any applause. We applaud for our kids and their accomplishments, but not for citizen statements. Hannah Alley?
Good evening. My name is Hannah Alley, and I'm a 2008 graduate of Parkway South. Currently, I work as a social worker supporting youth programs to use trauma-informed principles, restorative practices, and youth voice and leadership. I also lead a children's ministry at a church where many Parkway families and residents attend. I care a lot about kids, and I care a lot about this community, which is why I'm here as a concerned alumna and as a member of the West County Community Action Network. We can, as a group with the mission of bearing witness to injustice and systemic racism, facilitating change in social systems, and creating an equitable, supportive community. In the spirit of those things, I am here tonight to address the incident of racism that occurred at Parkway Central High School this morning, when a student, or perhaps multiple students, chose to write the phrase "White Lives Matter" along with a racial slur in on a bathroom mirror. Students cannot be expected to learn, grow, and thrive in places where their humanity isn't welcomed and where their dignity isn't respected. I would urge the board and administration to use a culture of restorative justice, along with a recognition of blatant bias that causes trauma, in two ways. First and foremost, support students of color in this school who are affected by racism. Listen to them, hear them, believe them, then make the changes they suggest to you in order to make this district one where students can be who they are without threat to their dignity based on their race. Second, to use this as a restorative moment of community healing. Use this experience to teach students about the impact of their actions, of racism, and the ways both affect a school community. Have these hard conversations that build trust, relationships, and restoration. Then we can truly stand together and say that in addition to hate, racism has no place in Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Hill.
Good evening. I'm Pam Hill, and I am a resident of the district. A lot of you know me. I'm the parent of two Parkway students, one at Claymont Elementary and the other at West Middle. I was horrified when I heard about and saw the racist message written on the bathroom mirror at Central High today. Horrified, but not surprised. We live in a racist society, and the black students and adults in this country, this city, and this district deal with it every day. I'm here to say to them that I hear them. I'm listening to them when they express how painful things like this are. I'm teaching my children to listen and to be part of the solution. And I am insisting that this school district listen and recognize how much work we have to do to eradicate racism, whether it is the horrifying acts like this one or the racist systems we all operate in. I expect the Parkway School District to be part of the solution to this. Our students need to learn to recognize all forms of racism and combat them. I was happy to see that the administration, Dr. McCarthy at Central, addressed this incident with students and parents right away, and that the incident is being fully investigated. But that's just the start. We can work together to make this better. Let's do it.
Thank you. Alexandria Lane Detweiler, please.
Hello, Ward. Good to see you. I didn't prepare anything. I'm really angry. I'm angry every day about this stuff, and I'm also incredibly happy. I'm not going to sit here and have pity for what happened today. I'm going to have empathy and compassion. I have a huge issue with the racism that breeds in our community. I pulled my kids from West High last year. My own child reported this stuff going on, verbatim. Racist things, anti-Semitic things, misogynist things. These are important. These are big deals. These are things that should make all of us uncomfortable. It should make you mad. Mad enough to go home and talk to your neighbor that maybe doesn't understand the issue and the root of the problem. enough to go home and talk to your students, enough to go home and talk to the people you truly love, your friends and your family. I want our community to be the character-filled community with integrity and compassion for all that it's supposed to be. I want our community to be better than this. I know that we are. I know that we can be, but people need to start speaking out. Punishment is not enough. We need to have mandatory teachings on these things at school. We need to have mandatory leadership training on racism with our staff. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Thanks.
Thank you. And Kit.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me address the board tonight. The problem I have with today is that I don't think it was really expressed enough that really what happened was truly racist. I mean, you need to say the name racism because it is alive and well here in Parkway, and particularly in West County and everywhere, honestly. And I think that you really need to call it what it is. I think we spend so much time with making it more gentle and more palatable, particularly for the parents and the people in the district, because you want to present a certain decorum, or you want everybody to look at your district in a certain way. Well, we all know what's here. We've had Slap a Jew Day in Parkway. Now we have things like White Lives Matter with the N-word written on a bathroom mirror in your schools. These are things that need to be brought to light. These are things that everybody in the community needs to know about. Everybody has to swallow that hard pill, including this board and including this entire community and the whole world. What I have a problem with is that you expect accountability from your students, and we expect accountability from you and the teachers and everyone who instructs every student in your district, which then falls back to you. So we will be looking at you. You can expect us, because we will be here. We also expect that you all will engage in those hard conversations every day that need to occur. We expect that you'll sit in your discomfort. It's time for white folks to accept the fact that we created a white supremacist country that this school district was also built on. And it's time for us to dismantle that white supremacist system. And it begins right here every day with your students having those conversations. Because guess what? We are not colorblind.
Thank you all. As I said earlier, you will receive a reply in writing from the board. And now we are going to continue with our meeting. Let's see. We are at 8.0. I think we missed the additions. Yeah. Additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. 6.01, addendum to agenda item 10.06, approval of personnel items. And 6.02, update to approval of audit and comprehensive annual financial report. The enrollment numbers were corrected from the original reports on pages 111 through 113 of the PDF. 8.0, approval of agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for November 15th, 2017? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.0, communications. 9.01, calendar of meetings. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, December 6th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. at Central Middle School. An anticipated closed session will be held at 6 o'clock p.m. Board candidate filing begins at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 12, 2017, at Parkway's Administrative Center and continues during the district's regular business hours through 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 16, 2018. The terms of Kim Applebaum and Beth Feldman expire in April of 2018. 9.02, Board Liaison Reports. We'll start at the far end and work our way down.
You caught me off guard. No, we actually had,
I think they're having trouble hearing you in the back. We've all been instructed we need to speak more loudly into the microphone.
All right, so there were a couple of things. We went to, number one, the student services meeting that we had with Dr. Gina Pacini, and it was a lot of information that Beth even had during the orientation, but also at the same time, we had the very same, we had another meeting with Dr. Pacini about the student services and how the whole organization works under Dr. Pacini's leadership. And it was just amazing that how much efforts we are putting towards education, towards character education, and bringing in new technology and services. So thank you, Dr. Pacini.
In addition to the Student Services Subcommittee, we talked about several different items that we wanted to delve more into with regard to student achievement, with some of the programs that are being offered to help specific students with our Sister Keepers program, as well as one of our college programs that is specifically geared toward helping our Black students who are first time college entering from their family. And so it was wonderful to be able to delve more into these particular programs and have an understanding of the various different ways that we need to embrace these groups of our students who don't have experience from their family or support to go to college, and specifically trying to help them. It's amazing to see the number of students that are being helped by this particular program. And with the Sister Keepers program as well, we have a wonderful group of young ladies that are participating in this program that help them to deal with a tough life. And I'm pleased to see that program is happening here in Parkway. I also attended the operations conference last week, and again, just a huge thank you to all of our operations staff who attended that day, the staff that worked to put that day together, of professional development. It was a very worthwhile day, and I enjoyed my time that I spent in one of the sessions in the afternoon or later in the morning on work ethics. And then we also attended the TLA subcommittee meeting where we're talking about reviewing board policy over teaching, learning, and accountability, Section I. There's like 42 or 45 policies that the subcommittee members are going to begin taking a look at. And so we have a little bit different process from last year in reviewing policies. So we're very excited that Kevin Beckner is there to be our leader and help us through this process and guide us through a new way to review the policies. It'll be a little bit more efficient for everyone's time.
I just want to echo Kevin's help and other staff members regarding the policies that are coming to us that have been edited and corrected and adapted according to Parkway's expectations. So we get a chance to read them now and provide our input as well, as Debbie mentioned, and that'll be a pleasure to be able to provide the feedback on those. We appreciate it.
I'll highlight two quick things. One is the Diversity in Action meeting that I had the chance to attend about 2 weeks ago, I think. And that is a group that has two representatives from each of our schools that come together to talk about actions that they are taking within their school community to help to bring up the achievement of our African American and other students of color. There was a presentation on cultural proficiency and how the dominant culture in our schools affect how all students learn and how we work to be culturally proficient in our schools. And then I stuck around with the elementary school group, and they talked a lot about how we begin to identify students in K through second grade who have the opportunity to be higher achievers and how we kind of bring them up and bring them along. So that was a great meeting. And then I also had the opportunity to attend the Veterans Day celebration at Barrett's Elementary School on Friday, which was a lot of fun. It was an assembly. I think they had about 40 veterans there who were mostly grandparents of students of the school, but a couple active service members who were parents, or actually one sister of someone in the school. So they honored and highlighted each of those individuals. 3 students read essays they had written to thank veterans, and the honors choir performed. And so it was. Then they did like a parade through the hallways where the students had all made signs and the veterans walked through. So it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed being able to be part of that event.
I was actually lucky enough to join Dr. Marty and Will Rosa on a bus ride. We rode a morning route in the north area, and very interesting because you pick up the high schoolers first. And I want to thank, and correct me if I pronounce these wrong, but Nikki Lampkins was our first bus driver. And she took us to North High. High schoolers, maybe a handful of them, get on the bus with their hoodies over their face, and Dr. Marty's all cheerful saying, "Good morning," and they just kind of look. So I think you got a couple grunts, and I got a eye roll. That was the most we got out of the high schoolers. I don't even know if they were still awake. Then we had Rob Burkett. He took us to Northeast Middle. Middle schoolers, a little bit more attention there. You know, they kind of at least acknowledged us. A few of them would say hello. And then we got to Janice Turner. Janice Turner was the most veteran. I think she's 10 years with us. And she took us to Riverbend. And the little ones, oh my gosh, they were amazing. Little chatty Cathys. They get on that bus and they're just, "Hi, who are you? My name's Susie." And they just warmed up to us. But I have to say, thanks to Dr. Marty, we did have some strange looks from some of the adults that were at the bus stops to put these children on, seeing 3 adults on the bus of their little ones, thinking, who are these crazy people on the bus? So Keith at least took the liberty of introducing himself as these kids were getting on the bus so that they knew we were non-threatening. But it was a blast, and I forget her name, who keeps this, I mean, on a time schedule. We were there at 6:30 in the morning, but you board that bus and you are gone. And I forget who runs it. Well, Joanne. I hope she hears us, but oh my gosh, an amazing woman. And she will track you down if she thinks you're late. Didn't she? I think she's like, "Get out there, Dr. Marty, get out there, Will." So it was an awesome time. Thank you so much, Will, for allowing us to do that.
Over the last number of months, I've had the pleasure of working with Erica Rogers at West High, and she sought money from the PTO to purchase a swivel camera. And what a swivel camera does is it is a camera that moves electronically, swivels, and it follows the teacher in his or her classroom that's wearing this device that it captures. And she had this idea that if the teachers could see themselves teach and be able to watch themselves in a classroom setting, it would help their teaching development over time. And what she's found over the last couple of years in reviewing this is that is definitely true. And so West High now has one of these, and the teachers have to share it because there's only one. But she's been sending me some videos of actual classes, and believe it or not, in my spare time, I've watched a couple of classes from start to finish, just to see how this works. And it's fascinating to see, what different techniques different teachers use to engage the students. And I think having this tool at our teachers' disposal will really help build their confidence and build the development of their teaching skills. Additionally, last night I spent the evening at North High with the Mentors for College group, which meant I got to spend a little time with Jenny Morcord, which was great. But we did mock college interviews for a number of our seniors in the Parkway District, and it was neat to be able to be across the table from a high school senior that I don't particularly know in respect to my son's friends, who all those I know, but it was neat to see and talk to these kids about what motivates them and what they do to achieve what they have achieved thus far. And the program, the Mentors for College program, was really come a long way in the years that it's been in place. I believe it started at North High, and it's expanded to a number of schools even outside the Parkway District. So it was a great evening last night.
Thank you. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend with several of us the HR Finance Subcommittee meeting, which is always so much fun and so exciting. But the amazing thing to me is here we are in November, and we're already talking about enrollment projections for the 2018-19 school year, and we're trying to project how many teachers we'll need in each school. And it really is a science, a demographic science, to see how the district follows the population so that we can be prepared when students enter the building in August of 2018. And we discussed some other projects that are going on in Patty Bedborough's area, and it's always very interesting to learn how the HR and finance departments operate in tandem, because we need to be able to afford all the teachers and all the employees. And so Patty's got to juggle all that, but they work together beautifully, and I always learn a lot when I go to that meeting. And did you want to say something?
I just want to share with the board and the public. I had the pleasure over 2 days to spend a lot of time with our 3 Teachers of the Year for 2017. Georgia Holt, who is Northeast Middle School, Sarah Lucan, who's Central teacher and was actually District Teacher of the Year, and Holly Simmons from Claymont, the Elementary Teacher of the Year. On Sunday, we were at the Ritz-Carlton for Emerson's annual recognition of teachers. That's always a wonderful evening, afternoon and evening, Sunday and the Sunday evening. And then at the invitation of the state commissioner, I took the 3 teachers to the national conference of the chief state officers, meaning people like Margie, all the chief states, state commissioners, state superintendents, whatever their title is in the individual states. They had a teacher panel, and these 3 individuals participated, and I was so proud. The concept was talk about teaching, what we need, what you're doing. They talked about Parkway's work in restorative work, trauma-informed. They talked about character education, talked about high rigor, equity, and they didn't hesitate to speak up. So I was very proud of our 3 Teachers of the Year. They really represented teachers and represented Parkway very, very well. And it was kind of a high for me to be part of that and to see them in front of, I think there was something like 7 or 8 commissioners that were at this particular meeting for them to be able to participate. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Some of the upcoming meetings that we have scheduled. Next Monday, November 20th at West High, Project Parkway quarterly meeting will take place at 6:30. And at that meeting, we'll be discussing bond issue projects for the 2018 bond work that may need to be done. And we will highly rely upon citizen input. So we would love to have as many parents and other citizens from Parkway attend that meeting. West High, November 20th at 6:30 p.m. The TLA Board Subcommittee meeting will meet again at 4:30 on Tuesday, December 5th at ISC, where I think you folks will be going over some more policies. Thank you for doing that. Details of these meetings will be posted within 24 hours of the anticipated meetings. 10.0 action items. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the November 15th, 2017 board materials?
So moved.
Is there anything that needs to be pulled to action or closed? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. 11.0 action items. 11.01 approval of audit and comprehensive annual financial report. Brian Whittle, Director of Finance, please come on down and share with us what you have to share.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to turn it over to Brian Wirtz with our auditors in a few minutes, but I guess I'll say the good news first. We had an unqualified opinion, which is audit speak for good job. I leave it to an auditor to figure out the most boring way to say good job. So, just a little about what Brian and his team do. They come out a week during the school year before the end of the year on June 30th and 2 weeks after that. And, they do a deep dive into our books. They do the big things like verify with the bank that we have the money we say we have, verify with PSRS that we made the payments we say we did. But then they go down to the minutia too. They'll pull they'll pull people out from just an individual payroll and trace that pay back to the approval you give, on your board nights under your action items. Same for the checks. They make sure that we followed all of our purchasing procedures and that the check made the check register that you guys vote on every night. And I'll turn it over to Brian. we'll be here for any questions you have.
Thank you. As Brian stated, my name is Brian Wirtz. I'm a partner with Kerbeck and Breckel, and we're the independent auditors for the school district. I understand we might have some problems with the slides, but I don't really keep up with those too well anyway, so I'll try to do my best. But before I get into the slides, like Brian said, I'd like to just kind of give a brief overview of what we do when it comes to an audit, just so everybody kind of understands what each other's responsibilities are. So it's management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements, determine that the basis of accounting used to prepare the financial statements is appropriate, and make sure that the disclosures to the financial statements are appropriate as well. And one of the most important things probably is to maintain an internal control structure so that there wouldn't be a material misstatement in the financial statements that would go undetected. It's our responsibility then to audit those financial statements, and we perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, governmental auditing standards, and the standards used for uniform guidance, which is funds that you receive under federal programs, or it used to be A133, now it's called uniform guidance. We're required to plan the audit to provide reasonable assurance that there are no material misstatements in the financial statements. So after our audit, we give our opinion, which Brian said was an unmodified opinion. Actually, there's 4 opinions in the 2 sets of financial statements that we give. In the CAFR, there is a unmodified opinion that basically says, based on our audit procedures, the financial statements are in accordance with GAAP. And then the other federal state reporting package that we distribute has 2 opinions as it relates to federal programs and 1 opinion for state compliance, and all those opinions were unmodified as well. When we do our audit procedures, we do assess risk as it relates to fraud. We have conversations with management, employees, board members, if they're aware of any fraud. If they were, how would they handle it? Who would they talk to about it? And that is a part of our planning process. So if anybody said anything to us that, hey, you might want to look here, we'd extend our procedures to adjust those risks as well. We did not have any concerns with any of the interviews that we did related to fraud. We do review the internal controls of the district, but we do not give an opinion on the internal controls of the district. And for the most part, we don't test the internal controls either. We do test internal controls as they relate to federal programs, but not to the operating cycles of the district. As I talked about, we did give an unmodified opinion. One of the most important things are the people, when we get the opinion, they go to look, were there any findings? So a finding would be if there's a control deficiency or weakness in the internal controls that is an immaterial weakness, that's considered a control deficiency. That can be reported orally or written if we choose. The next level would be a significant deficiency, and that's a weakness in the internal controls that could lead to a misstatement in the financial statements. And the last one is a significant deficiency that's considered a material weakness, which means that there is a weakness in the internal controls of the district that it is probable that a misstatement in the financial statements could occur and go undetected. So I'm happy to report, as a result of our audits, we did not have any internal control deficiencies to report to you tonight. Now I'm going to go to that. This is just required disclosures that we're required to disclose to you as a part of an audit committee. I'm just going to sort of go through these generally. If you want to click maybe 2 more slides. The first one was the staff that performed the audit. We did issue an engagement letter that was dated May the 17th, 2017, which basically defined what the engagement was going to entail. That talked in detail about your responsibilities and our responsibilities, what the timing of the audit was going to be, put me as in charge of the audit, who is ultimately responsible for the audit and the signature on the audit. The significant accounting policies used by the district to prepare the financial statements are included in Note 1, which is the significant accounting policies. There were no new accounting policies adopted in the current year, and the policies did not change from 2016, so there were no changes in reporting from last year. There were no transactions entered into by the district that lacked authoritative guidance, and there were no significant transactions recognized in a period other than when they occurred. There are accounting estimates in these financial statements, and a lot of these estimates are significant, and we're required to let you know that because since they are estimates, they're significant. When the actual results occur, they could be significantly different than the estimates, but that are presented in the financial statements. Our responsibility is to audit those estimates and determine that the criteria that management used to develop those estimates are reasonable, and we agree with the methodology that they're using for those estimates. Financial statement disclosures. We do say in here that they are neutral, consistent, and clear. The most significant disclosure in these financial statements is related to the retirement plan as it relates to PEERS and PSRS. I don't know if you looked in the financial statements, that disclosure covers 11 pages. So the report is 96. This is 10% of your report is this disclosure related, and basically it's related to the assumptions used to calculate the district's proportionate share of the unfunded liability related to those two retirement plans. So it's a significant disclosure. We encountered no difficulties in performing our audit, and there were no adjustments or uncorrected misstatements as a part of our audit, which means as we're doing an audit, there are three types of things. There are items that are clearly immaterial. So if we had a difference and it's clearly immaterial, we just sort of let those things go. The next would be a misstatement that's not material to the financial statements, but if there was 5 of them going the same way, they could become material, and we would just keep track of those throughout the audit. And then there are adjustments that are clearly material that we need to make. And we didn't have any of those as a part of our audit procedure. We didn't have any immaterial differences or material differences, which is pretty good, really, when you think about a $100 million district. So we had no disagreements with management. We do get a management representation letter as a part of our engagement, which basically is from management addressed to us stating that they gave us all the financial records that we asked for, they didn't withhold any information, answered our questions to the best of our ability, and made us aware of any subsequent events or commitments or contingencies. The date is November the 9th, which is the date of our opinion, which is the date that we would take responsibility for any subsequent events that would happen through June 30th through November the 9th. So if anything happened between those dates, it came to our attention, we'd have to determine if there's a disclosure requirement or maybe even an adjustment to the financial statements that needed to be made. Anything that happens after that date, we don't take responsibility for. We do have consultations with management throughout the course of the year, discussing maybe how adjustments should be made or how to record certain transactions. A lot of times when there's a bond issue with the defeasance, we get involved and help them make that transaction or help them post that transaction. But those discussions were not contingent on us being retained as auditors. Then the last couple pages, I don't really want to go into a bunch of detail, but it's just basically what we do or the procedures that we perform as it relates to certain supplemental information within the financial statements. So I just want to basically say, I'm not going to tell you what we do, but the schedule of financial awards, which is your awards that you spend on each federal program, that is audited by us, and that is, we give an opinion that it is in correlation or directly relates to the financial statements that we've audited, and we reconcile that information within the financial statements. Then there is required supplemental information, which is a lot of stuff. There's the management's discussion and analysis. There's budget to actual information in there by fund. Some pension obligation stuff that we're required to disclose. That is unaudited. And then there's some other budgeted information for the debt service and capital projects fund that is audited. And then the last piece is the introductory section of the CAFR, the statistical section in the back of the CAFR, and then the schedule of selected statistics in the other reporting package that is required by DESE. All of those are audited as well. And mostly because it's all narrative in nature, it's not numbers, so we can't give an opinion on that. It's unaudited. that's all I have if anybody has any questions. I would like to thank Brian and Patty for they do an excellent job for us. This is, I think, our third year with you guys, maybe, and so we're getting to know each other, and they know what we expect, and Brian writes the financial statements from start to finish and does a good job, and we just kind of review them and clean them up a little bit, and ta-da, here we are.
Thank you. I think you've answered all of our questions.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Let's see. We have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2016-17 audit report as presented in the November 15, 2017 board meeting materials. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 12.0 policy review, none tonight. 13.0 reports. 13.01 achievement report. I'd like to call Carter Snow, coordinator of student achievement, to present us with his first time. We won't be too hard on you tonight.
We're going to get a few technology things set up here, so thank you for your patience. Excuse me.
While we're waiting, do we have any students in the audience tonight? Anybody who's studying education or anything? I can kind of pick you guys out of a crowd.
We're teachers.
You're teachers?
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you from? Welcome.
Thank you.
What are you doing here? Your 3 requirement. Well, we're glad. You should come down. Anybody else? No? Okay.
It's okay, flip it over.
But you know, Carter went out and bought a tie.
Suit and shoes.
Thank you. There you are. I think we're ready. So, good evening, President Feldman, Vice President Applebaum, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Dover. It's my pleasure to present you a snapshot of the 2017 Annual Achievement Report this evening. So this report contains information on accountability measures that the state and Parkway uses to monitor progress. Under the 5th cycle of the Missouri School Improvement Program, our performance is rated according to 5 standards. They are student achievement, subgroup achievement, college and career readiness, attendance, and graduation rate. For the 2017 school year, I'm happy to report Parkway earned 98.6% of our possible points awarded for the aforementioned standards. Certainly, the hard work of our dedicated educators and staff should be recognized for earning which, as the coordinator of student assessment, I can qualify as an A+. With that high grade in mind, it's important to recognize that a percentage alone cannot adequately capture many of the amazing things that our students are doing in this district. It's also important to recognize a familiar Becknerism. We don't chase test scores, we chase our mission. While many of our students are demonstrating that they are capable on state and national exams, our mission calls for all students to be capable, curious, confident, and caring. It is a worthy goal that we will continue to pursue. A few background things before we dive into the report. It's helpful to highlight as they will give some context to the charts we'll see. So MPI, which is the MAP Performance Index, is calculated in the following way. You take the number of students who are advanced times 5, the number of students proficient times 4, basic times 3, and below basic times 1. You add all of that up, you divide by the number of students, and then multiply by 100, and you get the MPI. So basically, if all students are proficient, we would score 400. If they were all advanced, we'd score 500. Also, we'll talk a bit about tonight the student gap group, which are students who would be identified as Black or Hispanic, also students with an IEP, students receiving free and reduced lunch, or students learning English. So if you're in any one of those groups or multiple of those groups, you would be in the student gap group. And then finally, as you know, for 2017, the end-of-course exams, specifically Algebra 1 and English 2, were removed from 2017 accountability at the high school level. That was due to a form effect, so we couldn't use the scores to compare them to previous years, and so the state has made the decision to remove those from the 2017 accountability report. In some cases, I've made the effort to remove them from prior years as well for greater comparability. So I'll point some of those instances out. So we'll move into Standard 1, which is student achievement. What you'll see first is state performance. The change in color indicates a significant change in tests. And so we see in 2015, we changed the test, and then again in 2016 and 17, the tests have been the same. And then next year, as I present this again, you'll see that color change one more time because we're changing those tests as well. So that is where the state MPI performance is. And in ELA, I'm happy to report that our average as Parkway continues to be above the state average and also above the 2020 target that the state has established. In social studies, in math, again, Parkway achieves a greater average than the state average, and we are approaching the 2020 target in math. In science, where the test has actually remained the same for the last 5 years, we see that we are well above the 2020 target and also well above the state performance. And then finally in social studies, which is specifically the government EOC, we see that we are well above the 2020 target, and we saw a significant improvement specifically in 2017 for students taking the government exam. So we'll also move into Standard 2, which is subgroup achievement. And again, the student gap group is comprised of students who, as a group, have historically not performed at the level of their peers. And those are students who are Hispanic, African American, students with an IEP, students on free and reduced lunch, and English language learners. So first, again, in English language arts, we see the state performance for students in the gap group. Compared to Parkway averages, we see that our students in the gap group are outperforming their state peers, but not yet performing at the level of all Parkway students. And we see a very similar trend in mathematics, as well as science, and social studies. So college and career readiness is also one of the ways that we measure student progress. The first of these measures that we look very closely at is ACT scores, specifically the graduate ACT score, so the most recent score from the class of 2017. Here we see the national average compared to the state average, compared to the Parkway average. And so you'll see that Parkway scores are well above both the state and national average, though we did see a very slight decline in the graduate ACT score from 2016 to 2017, 0.1 in terms of composite score average. This is a very busy graph, which you cannot read from there. However, I will highlight a few things. These are actually, over the last 4 years, the number of ACTs students have taken while in Parkway. And so we see that in 2017, the number of students who took the ACT only one time, which was when it was offered to them their junior year, actually increased to 37%, which was a bit surprising to us. We've begun to engage some of our high school colleagues about why we think that might be and why we have students only taking the ACT that one time their junior year. So another way that we measure college and career readiness is precipitation in AP exams. So we had over 1,100 students take an AP exam in 2016-17 school year. Those students took over 2,000 AP exams, and 80.7% of them achieved a score of 3, 4, or 5. So as Mr. Beckner mentioned, we've been increasing the number of AP exams taken in Parkway, and we have not yet seen a decrease in our average score. So more students taking the AP and scores staying very high. Another way that we measure college and career readiness is the amount of students enrolling in a dual credit course. So for last year, the class of 2017, we saw 57% attempted at least one dual credit course. And of that 57%, 83% of those students earned a or B in that course, which of course earns them college credit. So 2 to go. We're on to attendance. Attendance is calculated by the percent of students attending 90% of the time or more. And so this is another area where we see growth for the Parkway School District. Our average attendance, the percent of students attending 90% of the time or more went up to 93.1%, which is the highest it's been in the last 6 or 7 years. And our graduation rate, I'm happy to report, is also the highest it's been since we started measuring under MSIP 5, which is the 4-year rate up to 94.6%, which is over a 1% increase from the previous year as well. So those are the 5 MSIP standards that we have. So as we conclude, I would like to offer that data rarely provide us with answers. Rather, they give us the ability to ask better questions. So with that in mind, what questions do you have?
The very last slide, I think second from the last, that shows attendance, which it has grown. And I was hoping there would be some correlation with the attendance, with the scores in math and science, but for some reason they are declining. Could you tell us why?
Yeah, sure. So we do expect, students are in the classroom more. We're gonna also see an increase in scores, and so we don't specifically see that from math and science and ELA for this year. So we'd like to dig into that a bit more. Which students specifically aren't attending? And which are, and what do those scores look like for those 2 different groups?
Now, to further drill down to the question, this represents the whole district, right?
Correct, yes.
So could you also break it down by the high schools and see where there's a major gap? Some might be performing higher, some may not be, and then you'll be able to probably go to the problem.
Yeah, I've looked a bit at the high school data, and so just like traditionally, and this is a national issue where high school attendance is typically a bit lower than elementary and middle. And so I can actually say that our high school attendance has increased at every one of our high schools, and many of them are approaching over 90%, which 90% of students attending 90% of the time, right. Which is a very good goal to have. And so we don't necessarily see a lot of difference between our different high schools, but we're happy to dig more into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my questions here, we always look really good against the state standards. And then the targets, things are looking really good there. A couple of things that I want to address is with regard to in elementary school on ELA and math, that it looks like our scores are actually going down just within Parkway, and that's a little concerning. And is there any deep dive that's been talked about as to trying to figure out the reasons why we're seeing those decreases within Parkway?
Specifically for elementary, or for all?
Yeah, we'll start with the elementary. And this is on page 12 of the achievement report.
Sure. I can't speak to all of the initiatives we have going on in elementary, but I can say that today we engaged our elementary, middle, and high principals with these data to begin the problem-solving process. So what do we notice, and what do we need to really dig into and begin problem-solving? So what is the problem? Why do we think that's happening? And then what do we think we can do about it? It's kind of the process we follow for problem-solving. So I recognize that we do have curriculum coordinators and principals who are highly aware that scores have not necessarily increased as we expected they would. And so we need to continue that problem-solving process, and will.
And then I also noticed with, let's see, this was on page 14 on the this had to do with middle school math. It's way below our target, and it's a decrease from 2016. And again, if there's any insight as to what's going on with our middle school math program.
Yeah, I'll be happy to engage with Stephanie Valley, our middle school math curriculum coordinator, and Mr. Beckner to try to dig into that and find out why we see scores decreasing specifically in math.
And
Actually, I'm sorry, Debbie. I'm going to speed up.
One thing to point out about middle school math in particular is that number is challenging because we remove all of the students who are taking algebra from that number. So it only represents the students who are not in advanced math classes. So it's a bit variable because if we actually have more students who are taking advanced classes and therefore participating in the Algebra 1 exam, we can see that number move and move even downward as we subtract out the higher performing students. In essence, that number only reflects about 2/3 of our students because the other third, the higher achieving third, is actually removed. So we see the 8th grade math number actually tends to be one of the lowest numbers, not just in our district, but across the state for that reason, that we actually remove a large chunk of our really well-performing students.
And then the other area that was of concern was with our subgroups. And this was on, let's see, I'll find it. It's on the hard copy reports, page 26, with our, actually, this is science, students with an IEP, but then also in ELA, students with an IEP on page 24, we're seeing a continued drop. They are the lowest performing group continuously. And again, just challenging the district, what are we going to do about this? Does it mean we need to sit down with the special school district and talk to them about this? Because we just can't continue to see these kids. This is the one group that keeps going down, down, down. I've never seen an uptick. And every year, I get on my bandwagon about that. It's just really concerning because you see these kids struggle. What are we doing about it? How are we helping them?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking for that group of students specifically, there are ongoing efforts. We are continually challenging our staff and our school faculty to identify how best to support those students and achieve mission. Because really, when we look at that as educators, we fully recognize that we are not seeing the progress, and we are not seeing the close and achievement gap that we expect to based on the results of our efforts. So that doesn't mean that we're going to give up, but rather that we need to dive even deeper and continue problem solving for those kids.
And I know we've talked about this in preparation for the meeting, but even looking at this on a school-by-school basis, on a grade-level basis, because this is just the comprehensive, collaborative, the whole total of the entire district, right?
It is, yes.
So we don't really know where the problem is. We just know that collectively all students with IEPs are going down in these particular areas. So it would be really nice to start honing in a little bit more on where are our specific areas that we need to start concentrating on.
Certainly, and what this report won't show is some of the bright spots we have within our district where we are starting to see some success, and how can we learn from those schools who are doing things in a way that's supporting all students.
And one of those areas is our English language learners. When we look at our subgroups, they in particular, we see an increase all the time. So what are we doing well with them that perhaps we could bring into some of these other areas? And I think one of the other concerns is, which it looks like it's beginning to improve with some of our black students in some of these areas as well. So, and I know that there have been some intervention efforts made in those areas. So again, what can we learn from that to help pull into some of these other lower performing groups?
Yeah, in some instances where we've seen actually a decline, maybe from 2013 to 2015, but we've seen an uptick more recently from 2016 to 2017. What we want to look for is continued improvement, so they can really understand the antecedents, what's causing that improvement, so then we can replicate that across the district.
And I guess it just looks like in general, science in general, scores are going down. Science in general looks like it's going down even statewide over the last 5 years. So I don't know what's going on with science, but it's just kind of concerning to see that that's dropping every year over the last 5 years.
So what we will see this year is a new science assessment for 2017. Unfortunately, we will not receive any scores from that science assessment from any grade level 5th, 8th, or biology in high school. And so this year is a year where we are trying some new things. We're taking some risks, understanding that we have a little bit more leeway in terms of accountability. And then in the next school year in 2018, we'll have state data back from new standards and new tests, in fact. And also, I'm no longer teaching science, so it's probably going to do better.
But I do appreciate you adding in the nationwide data on ACT for our students so that we can see how our Parkway students are faring up against the nation of ACT scores. So I appreciate you adding that this year.
Of course, yeah, we understand our students are competing nationally for
That's
places
right.
in colleges and universities, so we want to ensure that they are achieving above the national standard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've been doing at data meetings when we have the principals captured with Kevin and Carter and others is to really start looking at the comparison of how our students are doing on our district assessments compared to the standardized tests or the information you're seeing. And I think that's revealing some good information that we're using at schools or within content areas. I think that that's been kind of a new effort to try to really look at what we're doing to see if there's consistency or if there's some differences. One of the things that's been our district assessments have been constant, but you heard Carter say that the state assessments have not been constant. So where do we put our, what do we look at? And we really probably in some cases get more understanding from our district assessments than we do from the standardized.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Marty, for mentioning that. So, one of the challenges that we have is that we get these data annually, and it's often autopsy. And so we're often asking the question, did it work, rather than is it working? And so our local assessments can give us more timely information in terms of the efforts that we're making in our classrooms as a building, but also for the teacher efforts that we're making. Are we seeing progress there week to week rather than year to year? And that way we can be even more responsive for our students' needs.
And one of the comments that we made in terms of our concern about what's going on with the work around the new MSIP is that we're really suggesting that the future of state testing be more based on student readiness to take the test than on a calendar. And so when we talk about why we were concerned about the change at the commissioner's office is that we're really and I have had the pleasure, and so has Kevin, to serve on some of those committees. And we are so, in a way, so far beyond we're still testing like it's 1940 or 50. And we ought to be testing more on student readiness versus a calendar. Kevin has been pretty outspoken about that at his level in terms of committees. And it's one reason why we're kind of anxious to look at assessment. We talk about this assessment consortium here in the region, while we're kind of frustrated because right now the state maybe doesn't have the money or the position to make changes, but assessment could be so much different, look more like our district assessment and so much aligned to when students are ready to test than when we force a test on them. I don't know if Kevin or you want to respond to that, but I'm sure Kevin does. He's pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, I always call Dr. Marty after I leave Jefferson City just in case he gets a call that I was misbehaving and making sure that we're representing what we really believe is important for students. And as we've talked, and it's not new to you, but I'll say again tonight, we really want to assess what we value. And if we care about our mission, then we want to have assessments that are really reflective of our mission and not just things that are easy to assess. And too often the state test really becomes about, the goal becomes psychometric validity, meaning it's about what's easy to measure and you can show is valid with numbers, and a lot of times it means isolating skills and measuring them at low levels. And that's not our mission. Our mission is about kids who can respond to the ever-changing world, about kids who can really care about others, about about things that we know our mission really says and our vision says, that we want our kids to be empowered to pursue their personal direction and to care about others. I mean, these are things that we care about. And if our assessments aren't reflecting that, then we end up sending teachers mixed messages. Is the map important, or is our mission important? Well, our mission is important. So as we continue our conversations with the state and as we continue work around a regional assessment consortium, we really want to make sure that we're continuing to push that students are the most important thing, and we want to set them on a course to a meaningful life, and that if we have assessments that don't do that, then we're not going to get that. Because not only do we assess what we value, we get what we assess. And so we want to make sure that our assessments are meaningful, are valuable, that they're good measures, but more importantly that they're setting meaningful goals that kids can actually strive for. And that might mean that we're going to see more internally project-based assessment and more things where kids have to actually do. Not just answer questions, but like actually perform. And so, we're pretty passionate about assessment because we want to make sure that it's reflective of what we really care about as a district and what we really want for our students. And so we'll keep continuing to monitor our MAP performance and our EOC performance and our ACT performance and our AP performance, because we believe those are indicators of if we're doing our job well. But an indicator is different than the goal. And that's really important. We keep saying that to our principals too. Measures are not goals. And our goals are our mission and our vision and the things we want to see from kids. And if we're meeting those, we believe that test scores will come along the way. But there's a lot of really bad things we could do to get good test scores. We could just cram for the test. We could just teach for the test. We could just do all that stuff, and we would get better scores and not achieve our mission. And Carter said that up front. We could have 100% on MSIP and have a bunch of kids who leave uninspired and not passionate about learning and who don't like school, and then we really have done them a disservice. So thanks for letting me preach for a little bit, Dr. Marty, because we really do care about that. So those are going to be some of the things we continue to hear and continue to say as we continue that work around assessment.
Well, a brief comment on that. I really appreciate what you're saying. I think something that's in there that you didn't say explicitly but stands out to me is that there's issues of cultural competency within testing, and what you said is very different. So if you're doing project-based, if you're doing, how are kids performing in those kinds of settings, I would assume that you're a bit fairer to cultural differences between groups. So I think that could kind of be inserted in there too as your part in state conversations.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. One of the things, I've been at a couple conferences in the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that we're seeing is that some universities now are not even interested in looking at ACT and state scores. They want to see what students have done, what projects they've worked on. And I learned last week that Google doesn't even look at class rank or anything. They don't even look at a college transcript when they hire. They don't even want to. In fact, they don't even want to see students bring it in. And if somebody's going to drive the change, I think it's going to be industry here, the universities, but industry, because they're starting to say that doesn't mean anything. And a night that we're honoring National Merit, maybe we shouldn't be saying this, but because we count on good students, but they're saying there's so much more we want to see in students. Because like Kevin said, it's not some of the most highest grade performing students aren't necessarily passionate about their learning, and then are not necessarily passionate about their work.
And we know that this isn't just about assessment. That's what we hear from our students who attend a lot of our experiential learning, like through Spark. They're like, this is the meaningful learning, and I'm not going to have a test score to show that, right? To come back and say, here's my test score from. No, they're going to have experience. They're going to be able to talk to the things that they learned through actually doing the work. They're going to have meaningful projects that they participate in, and that is assessment evidence that kids are learning. And that's a different kind of assessment evidence than what we're looking at tonight.
I just want to say that I appreciate that remark because, and I think going back to how we're doing elementary grading, which is looking at progress, are they on track? And I think that there are some, Parkway tends to hold such a high bar for being very well off with how well we are achieving and the AP and how well we're scoring. But for some students, that is just not a reachable, attainable goal. And we need to start embracing the students for where they are, and that sometimes just passing a class is that student's best effort. And we need to accept that some students, that bar just has to be lowered a little bit. And, it just breaks my heart when, I want to at least see progress with some of these students, and we're not even seeing, progress being made with some groups of our students. And to me, I think that's the part that I get disappointed by, is with, we just want to start seeing some progress being made with some of the students. So that's all.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I'd be hesitant to say lower the bar. What I think we want to do, to your point, is recognize growth and progress, not just achievement, right? Not just, I was proficient. Well, okay, maybe you're not, but how far have you come? Where did you come from? And where are you going? And being sensitive to the fact that a lot of times growth takes time. And to your point, hard work and things like that. Where we, and I do want to say this just publicly, where we want to be careful is not to say, like, this is the best this kid can do, because that oftentimes is us putting our perception of that child and saying, well, you know what, we're just going to stop there. And so we really want to have a high bar for those kids. I think where your point, and we would agree, is, well, but we have to recognize where they're starting from and honor their growth, honor their progress, and really look at the trajectory that they're on. And yeah, we want to see that moving up, even though that is going to look different than just, you're not going to have an advanced, and you're not going to have a 4 on an AP exam to put on the wall, but to recognize the work they put in, where they were, where they are now, and that improvement.
And that's where helping our students become capable comes in. We want to make them capable. We want to help them become capable. And what does that look like? And for every student, that's going to look a little bit different. And the other point that I wanted to ask about, and this kind of gets in, this is what I like about this evening's meeting, is because we have an opportunity to look at our comprehensive financial report along with our achievement report, along with the next upcoming Goal 3 report. But as we look at enrollment and look at how staffing is occurring based on the enrollment, it seems like we talk a lot about the number of bodies in a classroom, and are we on target? But are we really, as one of our policies talks about, evaluating our instructional needs of the students? Because sometimes that means a smaller classroom for that teacher to be able to devote the time and attention that they need for the varying instructional needs of the students. Not that every teacher has 20 kids in their class and everybody's even, because 20 kids in one class is a very different picture from 20 kids in another class. Maybe that teacher needs 10 because of the needs of the students. So I'm just curious as to how that's being looked at that might help some of these students that we see not making that progress the way we'd like.
Yeah, thanks. That's an important question. And I would say two things to that in particular. One, we Dr. Marty, Mr. Snow mentioned earlier that we had a principals meeting today, and we engaged our principals in some of the data that you are looking at tonight and that we're talking about tonight. And in our elementary meeting, which we break out into levels and just meeting with the elementary principals, we actually, we are forming a small team, including some principals, some teachers, to actually take a step back and look at how we staff elementary and look at how we provide the services that we want to provide, and particularly given that elementary teachers, we've changed a lot in the last few years. My daughter's school, the principal said today, gosh, I look at this list and I think, what's the same as 3 years ago? Well, that's a lot on our teachers, and that's a lot on our buildings. And it's not that the change is bad, because it's not. It's all good. That's actually the problem. Is sometimes it's hardest to say no to good things. So that's the first thing I'd say is I think you're right, and we are taking that step back to take a look at, all right, so how do we meet the needs of the students in our school and best use our staffing model to do that? So we just introduced that to our principals today, and so we're going to keep having that conversation. The second thing I would say, and you were part of the work, Debbie, was we know that we have personalized learning coming, and we know that that's one of our strategies, our long-term strategies to achieve our mission is personalized learning. We know that that's going to be a very big long-term process, but when we talk about the idea of personalized learning, that it's not just you come to class, you get the same learning as everybody else, and if you struggle, okay, well now we'll have to figure out what to do, but actually trying to meet the needs of each and every student is going to require us to have some of those conversations too. That's going to be both a short and a long-term long-term conversation. And we've talked about that just because that's fundamentally the structure of school. Like, students show up, there's a teacher in the room, everybody gets the same lesson, you do the same assignment, you take the same test. Well, there's a lot of students that works really well for. And in Parkway we see that, and we've got the awards, and we had them all here tonight, and like that works for a lot of students. But for some it doesn't, and they need something different, or they want something different, and they need it to be personalized to meet their needs. So that would be the second thing I say. One, in the short term, yeah, we're really looking at our staffing model to see how can we make sure that we're meeting the needs of all our kids. But long term, we want to just personalize our system, make it more flexible so that we can meet the needs of every single student and not have just the same choices available for every student.
Thank you.
Yeah, my only question was, is the 2020 goal score for math, the target, just completely out of line? Or, I mean, everybody is like, what the heck is going on with math?
Yes, I've answered that question a few times today. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education set those 2020 goals. Is this the fourth year? The fifth year that those goals have been set. And so, yes, it's interesting to see that we've always been well above the science goal, and we've always been just slightly below the math goal. And so what determined setting those goals where they were, I cannot speak to it.
I mean, it just seems, because all the other ones, I mean, the state average, our average kind of falls in line, and then that one is just like, no. And so, you know, is the entire state below what we would expect nationally, or?
It's the answer to that is no. The state of Missouri is not necessarily that drastically lower than the nation, and so we're going to hit that goal, though. We are so close.
Sorry to keep interrupting Carter, but when you take my job, you sometimes get interrupted. Carter's found that been very gracious. I will tell you just how those were set. They actually did a comparison of. They looked at the NAEP, which is a national sampling test. Not every student in the country takes the NAEP, but they sample randomly. So every couple of years, we have between 0 and 5 schools chosen to participate in the NAEP. And the NAEP, because they do that across the nation, they actually call it the nation's report card. And then they actually looked and said, okay, so what would it take for Missouri to be in the top 10 of states on the NAEP by 2020? So it's not like a national average goal, it's actually to be top tier. And so those are some pretty high goals. Those 2020 targets are supposed to be high goals. In some cases, students in Missouri are already there. Or, I shouldn't say Missouri, students in Parkway are blowing that out of the water. Math is more difficult, which means there are other states on average, when you look at top 10, that are much higher than Missouri, which consistently we're very middle of the road, 20th to 30th in terms of achievement as a state. So that's how they set that. They don't just pick those numbers out of the air, but knowing that the DESE goal was top 10 by 20, that was the idea, is set high goals that would put us in the top 10 states as a state by the year 2020.
So in other things, we are achieving higher than the top 10 states, but in math as a state and as a... Okay. Missouri has problems with math.
Correct. The challenge is that we're using a state-created measure.
True, okay.
Against other states. And so, according to the NAEP, of course, is the national assessment, where we're using the Missouri-created assessment to measure ourselves against other states that have, at times, drastically different assessments.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Just to that point, before you
go ahead.
Missouri has always considered our assessments, even though through all these changes, are still considered
rigorous
good assessments, right?
Yeah, rigorous.
More rigorous.
Absolutely.
And so when we compare, I mean, not every state has the same test. To your point.
Okay.
And so
maybe some states are just thinking they're better than they are.
Well, yeah, and there's been some groups, including. You know that we're participating in model schools, and Bill Daggett, that group that we go to in the summer, they've actually analyzed tests, and Missouri always, by their analysis of the experts, always scores in the top, I don't know, at least 20, if not 15, 20, in terms of our rigor of our state testing.
Okay, thank you.
Carter, I'm a little surprised at our attendance trend, that it's on the rise, because we keep hearing so much about chronic illness and social emotional needs and mental health needs among children, which would seem to me that it would be keeping kids at home more than coming to school. And so are we in Parkway and Missouri following a national trend of slight increases in attendance, or are we outperforming other areas with our increase in attendance?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the national trend. I do know that attendance has been an increasing focus for many of our building principals and leaders, understanding that we need students here, and so it's interesting to note that while our principals are reporting an increase in the number of social emotional concerns we have for our students, that our attendance continues to increase. One may wonder that we have a handful of students with very severe needs, where they would be below 90% attendance regardless. But the average Parkway student, so to speak, attendance is in fact increasing for them. So we have a lot of students right between 89, 90, and 91% of attendance. So we're increasing the numbers there. But the students who are with significant social emotional concerns, who have a hard time coming to school, or might be not able to attend school for a certain amount of time, their attendance percentage is well below that 90% cut score. So they wouldn't necessarily be reflected in any improvement in the 90% of 90%.
Just out of curiosity, and you might not be the person to ask this question of, but when a student is receiving homebound services, how is that counted for attendance? If they are unable to physically come to the building, but we are teaching them in some way? Does anybody, I don't know, I don't see that.
Homebound is counted towards attendance.
It is?
Yeah, as long as they're enrolled in the days of enrollment.
Receiving services.
Would receive services, they'd be here. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to say that, and I want to give Chelsea a lot of credit over the last several years, we have more consistency now between levels. We were having more autonomy in attendance at our buildings, and therefore parents were sometimes confused, between when we got letters and when they got notices. That's now more consistent.
A lot of work went into this. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You make it, I don't want to say easy to understand, but understandable for we lay leaders.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Now we get to call on Patty Bedborough to give us the Goal 3, Project Parkway Goal 3 report. And Patty's bringing all her folks.
And Amy Joy. Entourage, look at that. We have a parade.
Okay. Well, this is the one you were using. Okay. So, do you want to use the clicker as well?
Sure we can.
So.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. So.
Can we go sit on that side? We can do whatever we want. Do you want to put my coat?
I can just do this.
I'm not using my coat. Here.
We can handle that, David.
Oh, it's working up here, so there you go.
No, use it like a blanket.
Isn't that interesting?
You put your coat over my head?
It's because they have that there. So it's working now. So.
Oh, this is working now.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. We'll be good.
I'm sure.
It is freezing in here. It's a little against our Goal 3 here. Turn on the heat now. Well, good evening, everyone. We will, as you can see, we have cast not only of myself and our Chief Human Resource Officer, Amy Joyce, but also our Operations Director. So this evening, we will begin by going through part of our district-wide results from Goal 3, and then we will hear the results of what the operations departments have been working on toward their goals with Project Parkway Goal 3 as well. And then we'll finish off the evening with a list of what our top priorities that we're working on this year.
So to start with Goal 3, just as a reminder, we responsibly and efficiently allocate resources, including finances, facilities, and personnel and time. So looking at measurable objective 1, each school, so it's each employee, each principal, each administrator, each school department and program will maintain ethical and fiscally responsible practices to effectively accomplish our mission. So we are definitely mission-centered. Measurable objective 2, all personnel, time, and resources will be allocated responsibly and flexibly based on the mission-related needs of our students and the financial reality of the district. And measurable objective number 3, each school department and program will successfully integrate environmentally, socially, and fiscally sustainable best practices into their area of focus. So when we're looking at measurable objective 1, we're starting to implement zero-based budgeting. We're looking for that unqualified or unmodified audits as part of our results. We want adherence to not only DESE standards, but also state and federal guidelines too. Our financial statements are created in accordance with GAAP guidelines. In bond issues, we want to have successful passage of those, and we want to maintain our AAA rating. We have just recently created our bond planning campaign for the 2018 bond issue, and we'll be presenting at Monday's Project Parkway meeting as well. Also utilizing the Thought Exchange program in order to gain additional feedback from our public. Of course, measurable objective number 2 has a large focus on our staff. That includes not only our certified staff, but our operational staff as well. Flexible use of spaces. With that, as you know, we have entered into a demographic study where we're looking at not only the comparison of what we're utilizing for demographic estimates and enrollment estimates, but what does a demographer think that is the trends also in Parkway. With measurable objective 3, one of our largest challenges that we have signed up for is the Better Building Challenge. So with this, we are using the new ASHRAE standards for all of our new facility capital projects. These are energy saving standards. We're also looking at our wellness efforts, and of course, with that, we're exploring a healthcare clinic for the district employees and members. So why do we do this? We do this for our students. Our students are our center focus. Along with that, we need resources in order to attract and retain highly qualified staff as well. So to begin with, our district-wide achievements so far. So when we look at this, we're looking at that fund balance growth as one of our targets. So completing the fiscal year 17, we did obtain our 0.25% growth in our fund balance, I will say narrowly. We originally estimated for $600,000 to be transferred into capital projects fund, but we were only able to transfer $110,000 at the end of fiscal year 17. Our largest challenge, once again, is our property tax collection. We have continued protests from not only our commercial landowners, but from our residential as well. Now, what we have done is completed our recoupment process with the state auditor's office, and with that, we do have some revenue dollars that we will be levying over the next few years in order to make some of the recoupment from those lost revenues. It takes the efforts of each and every employee in order to move toward this goal. It's not just the work of the finance department or the operations department. It truly is the building administrators, the curriculum coordinators, all of the student services staff as well, making the decisions to help with keeping the lowest cost for the goods and services that we utilize. When we look at Goal 3, we're also looking at the unqualified or the unmodified external audit. So we look for the auditors, as we heard from the report this evening, for them to examine what we have done. So not only for our state records that have to do with attendance or with our ridership numbers that go along with our transportation reimbursement, but then also with our policies and procedures, making sure that the invoices that they pull, that they have the proper approvals before they're paid, and the same thing with our payments to our employees, that they agree with the contracted amount, they're agreeing with the timesheets, etc. So all that has to work beautifully in order for that unqualified opinion to truly work. We're looking for strong internal controls and improvements in internal controls. So over this past year, we have enhanced the use of the P-card and in hopes to lower the amount of employee reimbursements that are taking place. Looking at the purchasing policy came into effect. And with that, we are also looking at enhancements possibly to our timekeeping system. We also look at the importance of bond passage and the maintaining of our AAA rating. So, of course, if we go back to 2014, of course, we had a successful bond passage with both of the sale of the bonds that transpired with that bond issuance. We maintained the AAA rating. Just recently, we did have a bond refunding, saved over $4.3 million, and that also then sustained the AAA rating as well. And what does the meaning of the AAA rating really mean to the district? It lowers our overall interest rate. So it maximizes the use of the taxpayers' money in order to increase the amount then that we can borrow in the future as well. The refunding of that bond issue netted a 1.1% interest rate. So now we can step into measurable objective 2. Ms. Joyce, would you like to join me here?
There you go. All right. Okay, with measurable objective 2, we are looking at all personnel time and resources will be allocated responsibly and flexibly based on mission-related needs of students and the financial reality of the district. So the first thing that we are going to look at is our elementary level and our class size. So we have established district target class sizes for kindergarten through 5th grade, and you can see for kindergarten we have a target of 17, then 18 for 1st grade, 19 for 2nd grade, 21 for 3rd and 4th, and 22 for 5th grade. And then we do have a maximum established for each of the grade levels, ranging from 20 to 25. As I indicated in the report, the school district has a district target and a max target that are below the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education standards. So we're very fortunate that we have lower class size targets. And what we did here is I took the average class size across the district for all, I think we have 393 elementary sections, K through 5, and you can see for kindergarten, our average class size is 18.6, 1st grade 19.2, 2nd 19.1, 3rd grade 20.6, 4th grade 22.1, and 5th grade 22. So all grade levels are within our ranges, and 3rd grade you can see is just slightly below the district target. Then for grade levels 6 through 12, we also have target ranges that we look at. 23 is a target for 6, 7, 8, 24 for 9, 10, and 9th, 10th, and 11th, and then 24 for 12th grade. We have a maximum class size, 26, straight down the line. And what we did, because there are so many different class offerings with core classes, with elective classes, I talked to Nathan, and he recommended that we look at the median class size for each of the grade levels. It would be just hundreds of courses. So as you can see, when we pulled the numbers, the median class size for grade 6 through 12 is well below in all grade levels, below the target. For the middle school only classes, the median class size is 17. For high school only, it is 20, and then middle and high school together is 19. The next area that I'm responsible for in MO2 is the secretarial staffing, and I wanted to mention the operations department will be referencing their staffing key performance indicators within their section. Here we have the elementary level secretary staffing ratios, and at the elementary level we have a principal secretary, a school secretary, and a staff secretary for each of our elementary buildings, and you can see how the numbers are distributed out, one secretary per X number of students that are listed in the chart. And then at our middle schools, we have, oh, it looks like one middle school fell off of my chart. Who's missing? Oh, West is missing. I'm sorry, West, if West is here. I don't know where West is. West was probably in the report. We have a similar ratio, a principal secretary, staff, principal secretary, a school secretary, and then we have one staff secretary per 300 students at the middle school level. And then at our high schools, we have a similar staffing model, but we do have additional secretaries in place for budget and athletics, and then the school store. And now I'm going to turn it over to the operations department to talk about their staffing areas.
Thank you, Amy. I think at this point we just move to measurable objective 3, the MO2s of each of the operations groups that have large departments. They'll be handled within their summaries. So when we look at MO3, here we go. Oh, the other things with the MO2, sorry about that, is Mike Mertens and his group are actually doing a current inventory of space usage. This is actually going to be utilized along with the demographic study to say how many spaces do we actually have that could be additional classrooms. That's going to be very important for us for our future planning. Also, identify any unused classrooms. And then district-wide for MO3, so each school department and program will successfully integrate environmentally, socially, and fiscally sustainable best practices into their area of focus. So here we're talking about more than just sustainability, but certainly sustainability is a target here. Sustainability is more than just energy savings as well. Eric, when he does his department's recap, you'll learn a lot more than just the energy savings that's on these next few slides. But as I mentioned, we're part of the Better Building Challenge, so a pledge that we made along with the U.S. Department of Energy to save 20% in energy usage over the next 10 years. So a 2% increment at a minimum for each year. It also has a wellness component and a curriculum component as well. This year we are awarded 2 schools, Green Ribbon schools, by the U.S. Department of Education. Not only did these districts utilize some of our district-wide initiatives, such as our CNG buses, our solar panels, our LED parking lights, some of them have permeable pavement, also composting and recycling, but also they have green teams. North High in particular has a rainwater recovery system. So it leads to more changing habits and not just in the district-wide initiatives. The first slide here is the energy use per square foot. So this is a combination of both natural gas and and electric put together. So as you can see, some of the buildings, you can see over the last 3 years, some of the decreased use of energy. Part of that is some of the buildings that we actually have completed some of our bond projects at. So North High in particular, the installation of the new chiller systems there, certainly that has had a large impact. When we look at energy cost per square foot, you can see a very similar decline, but remember, energy costs on a regular basis increase. So for us to have a decrease in the cost per square foot, we are actually outperforming the energy savings, not just offsetting those annual increases, but then doing something even more than that. So today I looked back fiscal year 14, we spent $4.5 million on energy services, so a combination of natural gas and electricity. In fiscal year 17, we spent a total of $3.8 million, so $3,770,000. So that's a delta of $734,000. So it really means true operational savings. Through some of the projects that we have done, it has been able to help offset the increases in our salaries and benefits and help us to maintain good salary schedules. Water use, that's a component of the Better Building Challenge as well. As you can see, we do have a few trouble spots, Claymont Elementary in particular. I know the maintenance staff and facility staff has been working in order to detect what that issue is. Oh, it was resolved today? So maybe you can discuss that when you come up here. We also have district-wide starting to put in the low-flow aerators to reduce water use through the fixtures, and they are retrofitting 30% of the restroom toilet fixtures with dual flush valves. So that's an ability to lessen the water use. So along with that goes the water cost as well. So as we know, Missouri American Water increases their rates on an annual basis as well. An important component of Measurable Objective 3 is also that our capital projects are completed on time and on budget. So we do have some projects in the past year that were not completed right on time, and then we have some that did run into some issues and some extensive change orders. But what's important with this measurable objective is to make sure that we can produce the projects as close as we can to budget so that we can ensure that the future projects are also able to be completed with the bond spending. Wellness is a very important component of the Better Building Challenge, and along with our Measurable Objective 3, our wellness program has helped us in our long-term benefit spending, so our employee wellness programs. Last year, the district won the UHC United Healthcare's well-deserved award. With that showed that we had a very robust wellness program. And we have wellness leaders, not only Leah Gonzalez, our district wellness leader, but we have wellness leaders at each and every building. So even the operations building and our building have have a wellness leader as well. We offer many wellness offerings. Many of them are UHC related, and some are classes that are led by our employees. So healthy cooking demonstrations, we did marathon in a month last month, and I'm sure we are going to do health for the holidays in December. We also offer a wellness incentive to our employees and retirees who complete an annual wellness visit included with biometric screening and participate in a wellness event. Here are our wellness engagements by members and by locations. And here are our total events at schools and buildings. So just for an example, when there is a 6-week yoga class offered twice a week, that's counted as 12 events. And then I would like to then lead into our operations directors and their report. So I want to start with Eric Leaders, our Director of Sustainability and Purchasing. So you just use those. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Very good. Well, Patty was able to talk quite thoroughly about some of the key performance indicators as it relates to sustainability on a district level. So a lot of the energy efficiency improvements that we've been able to make and the impacts that it's had. That spike that we saw right there with water as it relates to Claymont, we identified that was a meter issue. Just today, went back and forth for some time with the water company, identified that there is a problem with their equipment. We're going to be getting about a $60,000 credit anticipated between water and sewer that has been occurring over the last several months. So that's a positive. So those types of things that we're able to catch with that type of rigor of monitoring of what we're able to have to realize those savings that otherwise another organization, it might just slip by the wayside for months or years. With that, there's a lot more things that we measure related to sustainability and such, as well as purchasing. At the same time, there are some of those elements that we have not yet put a metric to, but are still working towards, such as how we're able to make sure that we're specifying the right materials when we put into a new facility or renovated facility, such as carpet, making sure that carpet doesn't have emitting materials that aren't as good for individuals' health as a non-emitting material. Things like that we don't necessarily have metrics in place, but they're good for students, they're good for staff, they're good for health, they're good for the environment. But there are things that we are absolutely measuring, such as single-stream recycling. This is a program that has been put in place for decades now as Parkway School District, and something that we are capturing at a magnitude of a very large organization. That, as you can see here, there are those schools that are performing even as much as high schools, those elementary schools that are performing even as much as high schools. They have those partnerships with community members that they are actually using community drop-off bins for recycling, which ultimately keeps our rates for recycling down. So the costs that our recycling hauler charges the district are kept down because of that. In those lower performing schools, we attempt to work diligently to try to improve upon that. Composting, we have a district-wide composting initiative that collects an additional 500 tons of material every year, in addition to the single-stream recycling, which captures about 900 tons or so a year. So composting about another 500 tons a year that we're able to do, that we eliminated styrofoam lunch trays, and working with Marlene and Nutrition Services to use compostable materials. We've been performing extremely well across the district. Most schools have zero issues, and what I mean by issues, those are instances where a non-compostable material, say a piece of plastic, a water bottle, a aluminum can, a chip bag, gets into a compost bin. When you go to the store and try to buy compost for your garden, you don't want to have chunks of plastic bottle in there. So it's important that when we are providing that material to these commercial composters that are making that compost that you buy them and put in your backyard, that material is clean. And with that, we can identify which schools are doing exceedingly well and which schools have room for improvement. With purchasing, so the function of the purchasing department is really centered very truly around goal 3. We're all about trying to get the best bang for our buck. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we're in compliance with state laws and school board policies, and making sure that we meet the district's needs at the best value for the goods and services that we purchase. So in doing so, we do a variety of different bid methods in order to get that best bang for the buck. We have some lower dollar spend bids that we kind of classify as phone bids, while others are written and sealed, are those that are more involved, are more process oriented, that have to be more formalized with our terms and conditions. So on this next slide that might have trouble seeing. In essence, what this breaks down is the number of bids that we've conducted for the respective fiscal years, the anticipated spend based on those bids, and the savings realized from the procurement process and from the bid process. And those savings are based off of the average cost of what it would have been if we had utilized a vendor that was not the low bid. So as you can see, we conduct a magnitude of between 450 and 500 or so bids every year. I'd say about $4.5 million or so in any given fiscal year, with the savings percentage between 10 to 20%, as if we would not have undergone that amount of rigor for making sure that we get the best value for what we're needing to do in the district. So with that, I'll turn it over to Marlene.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Oh, it means I have to do two hands. Oh my God. Good evening. How are you doing? Everybody's freezing. We'll try to keep this short. For the nutritional KPIs, I had 3 that I was addressing: meal participation, meal production with employee and staffing, and then processed food versus scratch food. Let me see, sorry. So the first one is breakfast, and we want to be able to offer breakfast to all of our students and staff because they're considered our customers, and we all know that that is the most important meal of the day. Studies show that students consuming a breakfast meal are more alert and ready for learning. We also have less disciplinary or nurse visits with our students. We have found in some schools, most of our schools do eat in the cafeteria, but we do have a couple that will take their breakfasts into the classroom. And those buildings that do that, they tend to have more that participate in breakfast, and it could be because they see their classmates eating, so then they want to participate in it too. The only drawback to that is that we right now employ only one person, one nutrition staff for each building at breakfast. So it makes it a little bit challenging to have them service the classrooms versus having the kids come down and take it back to the classrooms to eat. We would like to do a little more further study with our administrators because there will be some trash issues too, but that is something that we're working towards. So you'll see in this graph here that the percentage of students eating breakfast at a school has either remained the same or increased just slightly. Okay. This next graph will be lunch participation at all levels. We have seen a decrease in the meal participation between 2015 and 16, and that could be attributed to the USDA guidelines that particularly addressed sodium levels and whole grain foods. So what we did with that is we implored Chef Dan to work with vendors to introduce what we call flavor bars, which would increase flavor. That students get to put it on themselves, but it doesn't increase the sodium levels. Let's see. I guess, sorry. Oh, no, we're going to go back, sorry. So in this slide here, I'm sorry, I do want to go to the next one. The next slide, I wanted to talk about average meals served per employee. So you'll see here that the blue bars represent the schools, and the red our participation, and you'll see the red bar represents actually the amount of employees that we have staffed. So you'll see some are overstaffed and some are understaffed. So we look at this graph every month. We craft a graph and we study it, and often we will decide then to employ an extra employee where we see that they're a little bit short-staffed, or we may even move a staff person around. So instead of adding on additional staff, we may just relocate them. This one here particularly talks to average meals served by the production kitchens. So we have 3 working production kitchens, and they service the whole district. What you will find out if you ever visit, I know Dr. Marty visited South High several years ago, and what you'll find out is within the first year, oh my gosh, the first year, I'm getting tired too, within the first hour that everybody starts, from 7:30 to 8:30, most production kitchens are pushing out at least 800 to 1,000 meals. That's their first run. So they have a couple deliveries. Then the next run is the rest of the meals that go out. So that's quite a feat for them to get out those meals that fast. So then you'll see in some of the next slides where we have the difference of scratch cooking and your processed food. But here, this slide will definitely show that some of our production kitchens are overstaffed and some are meeting the requirements that they need. Sorry. So when we look at processed versus scratch and the breakfast program from 2016 to 18, you'll see that it's pretty flat. It really hasn't changed much. And a lot of that I might attribute to the fact that we only have one staff member at breakfast. So it's a little difficult for them to be scrambling eggs and making bacon for everybody when there's only one person to serve and run the register. So it gets a little difficult. As far as lunch, this is actually elementary lunch. You'll see that it looks as though that we might have increased in the processed food slightly versus scratched, and we attribute that mostly to the fact that elementary students really like finger foods. It's easier for them to ingest in the time that they have. So one example is baked chicken meal. The baked chicken was wonderful. It was moist. The kids liked it. But a piece of baked chicken is sometimes hard for a little guy to consume in the amount of time that they have. That also talks to healthy meals. It takes longer to eat actually an apple or peel an orange than it does to I think I've talked to you guys about this before, the pudding. The pudding's a lot easier. It goes down faster. Oops. And then for middle school, there we have a little bit more of processed food again from 2016 to 17. So how we're going to combat that is we're going to send Chef Dan out to do some more taste testing. And I was with a group last night who was talking about donating to those students that can't pay their charges. And we discussed with other school districts how a visiting chef will come in their classrooms or in the cafeteria with an induction burner and actually cook the food that's being served that day. So he can't possibly cook 800 meals, but he could at least be producing some of the food that they're going to eat right there in front of them to let them see how the menus are made out and the recipes are put together. As far as the high school, you would imagine that they have increased in more of their scratch cooking because they have a full kitchen. They have tilt skillets, they have mixers, they have ovens that are either a combi oven, which is a heat, or a steamer put together. So they have baking departments, they have salad departments, they have a lot more equipment to work with and to handle these scratch cooked menus. So I kind of like to show you both these slides together, but if you look at this one here, we're also trying to reduce the hot shots, and that is firing up a truck and sending out more food to a location that the truck has already went one time to, but they run out of food. And so they don't have kitchens to produce the food. They often have to call the production center to send it out. We do have ventless ovens in all our middle schools and 2 of the elementaries. So our goal for the next couple of years is to start equipping the elementary schools with ventless oven too for twofold. One would be that they would be cooking their vegetable stew line. And that would be they would have extra product if we do run out of food, that it would be hot and cooked right there in the school instead of calling for a truck. So see here, some of them have decreased, but I noticed that Central Middle School, which I cited in the narrative, Central Middle School and actually had increased in their hot shots, and I believe that could be that more students are eating there. That's going to be my guess. So we'd like to back that up with numbers too, kind of look at the data. So that's all I have for you. So now I'd like to turn it over to the Direct Transportation, Will Rosa.
All right. Is there the penguin?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I remember that. So wow, it's good.
So I have some slides, some KPIs. I got about 13 slides, and not in any particular order. So the first one is key performance indicators. Driver daily vehicle reports. We track everything in transportation. So this is if a driver, the lights out, stop alarm's not working. We keep track of them numerically, and so you can see we've in 2000. I just got 3-year slides, and I've got a 3-year moving average for goal. We're trying to improve as we move forward. So a goal of 1,400 right for the year, and there's 100 drivers or so that ride up a bus twice a day. So we see that number go down. Means the shop are doing the right things with preventive maintenance, taking care of the buses. So it's going in the right direction, keeping buses safe. We got another KPI on shop-related measurement on bus breakdowns. We don't like buses to break down the road, not safe. We don't like kids in the buses getting school late. So we keep track of our bus breakdowns. And so you see it's been declining. We've had a couple good years. And again, that's just a measurement of what our shops do. Keep the buses maintained so they don't break down the route. We don't want kids on the side of the road in a bus. Another key performance indicator is our bus tier utilization. So if one bus is fully utilized, it'll do high school, middle school, and elementary. That would be the ideal scenario. And so we like to stay above 90%, and we're not always at 100%. It can't be. Some routes are longer than others. We have some routes that have activities in the afternoon, so they can't do 3 years. But 90% seems to be a sweet spot. I don't want to have too many. You don't want to be too high or too low. That seems to be the right, where you have flexibility on your tiering. Here's another, is a pictorial of the tiering. You can see the top line of the 3 buses. We have actually 81 of our buses in the morning. Is that the morning? Yeah. 81 of the buses in the morning that actually have 3 tiers. And then the next one would be a first tier and a third tier. We have one bus on first and a third, and we have a on a first and second tier. So maybe on a third tier, maybe the second tier is the SOL bus. It's longer than an hour. It's a longer route. Couldn't do a third tier. And then in the afternoon, a 1-2 tier would be first or second tier, and then they do high school or middle school activity. So that's why it's a 2 tier instead of a 3 tier. And then some of the 1-2 tiers could do field trips. So we try and be pretty smart about where our bus is assigned, but above 90%, that's important. The annual Missouri State Highway Patrol, we do an inspection every year. Our goal is above 90%, and we've achieved that for 28 years. We just had an asterisk or the green stripe year. We got it unfairly treated, but we're okay now. We ended up with a Highway Patrol. It's all good. They love us again. So I think I'm going to project a 95 or higher this year, maybe even 100%. We've got a new fleet maintenance guy, and he's feeling very confident. So. Oops. Bus access is a big one. These are really our number one priority. The goal is always 0. We're not at 0. We measure preventable accidents, and then also backing accidents, which are preventable. Preventable being driver that fail to exercise everything that's reasonable, every reasonable precaution to prevent an accident. That's what we would assign a preventable accident. So we're in the range of 22 to 25 every year, and we're always trying to get to 0. Nothing serious, thankfully. And we measure everything on preventable accidents. Bump into a mirror, that counts. That's preventable. We don't pick and choose. I mean, those are real numbers. Ridership, here's a big number. The number's been going up. That top number is 11,084 students with the bus. We did a student count this year in October, so we have a lot of kids riding. That drives our reimbursement from the state. That helps. That's a part of the calculation. In terms of total students that could ride, I think we have about 14,558 students that could ride the bus, are eligible, that live outside that are not in the walk zone or a special assignment. And so that's about 77% of our students that could ride the bus. We'll probably take some more if we wanted to. That'd be good. Again, we're student ridership bus. Our goal would be on the KPI for a bus at 22 seats. To do a seat would be 40 students on a bus if we had 100% load factor. And so I can't read those numbers, but this last year we were at 42 for elementary, 39 for middle school, and then I can't read it, 35 for high school. So we're getting a pretty good load factor for kids. We could all take more. And I'm not factoring C&D buses. They have more seats. They've got 20 to 48 capacity. And that average takes into account the SOL buses. They only have 8 or 10 kids in a Mosaic bus. They may only have 10 kids. So that's average, including those. So right where we need to be. Bus safety violations, we just started tracking those. There's some write-ups. Some of those kids aren't sitting in their seats. We write up. So we've been keeping track of the numbers there. Hard to read, but the big bar on top is the PM. The little light blue bar on top is the AM. Kids are pretty good in the morning and the afternoon. It's a little bit different. So we've been tracking them. I think the goal, I don't know quantitatively what the goal is, but the goal would be a better bus experience for kids. We want them to enjoy the bus ride, but follow bus safety rules. So I'm not sure what that right number is, but we're trying to get smarter about it. diesel fuel, we've been, that's our diesel fuel since 2013. Before our CNG buses, we were purchasing about 250,000 gallons of diesel fuel a year, and so we've increased that by 80,000 gallons, or about 30% displaced. We're going to buy diesel, and we're now using a cleaner burning compressed natural gas. And next year we're buying another. The next cycle of buses is CNG, but this year is the 10 CNG, so that ought to objective what would go down there. Notice it's the busy slide here. I think fuel pricing. So one of those lines up there, the green line is natural gas. I know everybody's going to have one of these slides. Here's mine. So, natural gas, the price is stable. The pricing line is the green line. It's pretty stable. All those other lines are diesel and gasoline. And so as propane goes up and down and diesel fuel goes up and down, natural gas is pretty flat over the years. That's I think a 10-year average from back to 2004. Natural gas versus our reliance on foreign oil, and there's an abundant supply of it. So as diesel price goes up and down, natural gas is going across, which will help stabilize our fuel costs every year when they spikes. And fuel expense, can see, again, correlation between the cost of fuel, which has gone down over the past 4 years or 5 years. We were at $6.61 in 12-13, and then we started buying compressed natural gas buses next year, the following year. So keep going down, and gas prices have gone down anyway, as we know. So we're down to $3.22, so almost in half. So we've made some progress, saving some money. And my final slide. These are just some of our key performance indicators, driver training, testing, safety. We do, to meet all the legal statutes in Missouri, federal and state, and for testing and emergency evacuations, random drug testing we do every month. Most people don't know that, but we test drivers, drug and alcohol every month randomly to meet state and federal guidelines. Emergency evacuations, we do that. 8 hours of training with all our employees. We have to do our drivers 8 hours every single year. We just purchased software. The board approved it in the summer, or some safety module, a safe school that has helped us achieve our training and offer a little different program. So we make drivers. It'd be my great pleasure to introduce the Director of Facilities, Mike Mertens. Thank you.
I don't know if I'll be as witty as Will was, but we'll give it a shot. I'd like to start out talking about our custodial group, and this is an overtime slide. What you don't see here is back in 2011 when we went through the budget reduction process, our custodial overtime was double the numbers that you see here. We review these every month with my team, my custodial supervisors, and it's important we look at it from two ways. We look at history from month to month, but then we also take length and look back over the last 4 or 5 years to see if there's any trends, make sure we're on that trend back. It is seasonal. You do see it bump up in May when we're getting buildings emptied out for construction, and then it bumps up again in August when everything back in. And we had a slight uptick as a result of the CWA contract. We do have mandatory overtime coverage in there now, where we didn't have that before, so that did push it up just a little bit. Good news is that, and I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to tell you, I think we're actually full. If not, I think we're actually full on the custodial group. And 18 months ago, we were 15 down. So now the trick is, how do we keep those folks? And that will also have a positive impact on our overtime. This is custodian by building. We use a model that there's one day custodian in every one of our buildings. At our middle schools and high schools, we have a mid-shift that helps with the lunch. And then our evening custodians, including the mid-shift, are on a 30,000 square foot amount. So if an elementary school is 60,000 square foot, that's 2 custodians the evening. We use that across the board through middle school and high schools. It seems to work well for us. Falls in line with APPA standards, which is an industry standard on staffing. We staff to a level 2 for those nurses areas, locker rooms, restrooms. We staff to level 3 on the rest of the building. That's generally what K-12 public schools staff to. You notice it's Central High is one up over what the model is, and I've already talked to Ellen, and we're investigating that, and we'll get that back into the model. This is our maintenance overtime. Again, normally we see seasonal on August, September, October, when everybody comes back. There's all kinds of things everybody wants to get done. But it's actually at the lowest over the last year that's been as we've been tracking it. So again, we share this with Josh, who's our new maintenance supervisor, and we go over the numbers monthly, and we always do a cost benefit. If work that we can do, and we have a contract not to exceed on it, but it's cheaper for us to do it on overtime, we'll keep that type of work in if it's cost benefit for the district. We're looking at that right now for early childhood lane, a couple of walls, up with lights, not to exceed, looking like 7,000, and we think we can do it for 25, 26, 27. The straight time overtime is going to be a bit more, but definitely it's going to be to a benefit to have people do it on overtime and get it done before work break. So. This is just a breakdown of our maintenance group by technicians. This does include our leads, so that they are not extra on top of these numbers. Every one of these areas have actually been reduced over the last 12 years, including the locksmith, but not a roofer. We actually had 2 locksmiths when I started, now we have 1. We can't get any more or less than 1 roofer. That's what we started, and that's where we're still at. So it's really the only place that we haven't made a reduction. I'm really proud of this group because while we've been getting more efficient in how we staff internally, we've also reduced our reliance on contractors for maintenance work by about $800,000 over the last 13 or 14 years. We made that drop out over, we've been holding that now for about 4 years at the same level. But back when we started in 2003, 2004, we were about $1.3 million, and we've been currently holding about $500,000 on contract out maintenance work. So it's an $800,000 reduction. This group also does capital work. They did all the LED lighting. The carpenters have been putting all of the electronic access lines with the Rock City cards on the Bond-ish, and we are almost wrapping up the locks. The locks are also wrapping up the lock sets at all the schools, and so instead of contracting that work out, that we did that work all in-house. And finally, on the overtime is grounds. As you know, grounds is very seasonal, as we had a lot of snow there about 4 years ago in January, and we've had light winter since. What we try to do to minimize your time on grounds is we don't call the crews in. If Dr. Marty decides to call school at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we won't have the guys come in until 7 o'clock that morning. We don't come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and start working overtime. What we'll do is we'll come in at 7 o'clock when the sun's up. We can see we're doing better. If we can get it done in 8 hours on straight, we'll do it on 8 hours on straight. If not, then may go over a little bit or bring the boys in 2 o'clock this morning, touch up the district, be ready for school the next day. So we're very cognizant of the fact that we're trying to use our folks smartly and not work overtime if we don't have to. We organized the grounds group 2 years ago. And I have to say that it's been a success for us in a couple different ways. What we do is we have 4 crews. You can see the number. We try to balance out their acreage so that all 4 crews are cutting about the same amount of acreage. And we are now we're in a 5-day turn. So we can actually, if we're just cutting grass, we can turn the district in 5 days, Monday through Friday. And that would go. That's pretty good. The third thing we're adding into, which can push that back to stays, is if we have to do some more bioswales, clean bioswales up, various sundry things. We're doing a lot of sustainable landscaping. Now we're learning how to do that. Although it's going to be easier in some areas, it's going to take some maintenance in other areas. So the fall, we're going to do some work on cleaning those sustainable landscapes up because we have to get them ready for winter and the next spring. So it's an area that we're spending a lot of time. I actually took crew chiefs down to the Missouri Botanical Garden, where we met an expert in sustainable landscape, and we actually walked through the Botanical Garden. He showed us the various types of landscapes we're going to be working on, and I thought it was really good for those guys to see, get some hands on, and talk to somebody who's really an expert in their field. We also changed it up so that the high school outposts now have 20 acres apiece. At one time we had 3 people, or actually 2 people at the high schools. Now we just have 1, and they're responsible for 20 acres of cutting as well as maintaining the athletic fields, putting the marks down, the lines down. And then every person in athletic who then maintains the district the playing fields. And if you were talking to Mike Roth, he really likes what we've done for our athletic fields, because after we're into the second year and we're seeing the fruits of the labor that we've been able to aerate all the fields. We've sodded a couple, we've seeded a couple, but they've been able to get the care they need to bring our athletic practice fields up to a level which is where they should be. And the 3-person crews did a very good job. This is a slide on PMs, preventive maintenance work orders. The red line is the total work orders, the blue line is the preventive maintenance. And you'll notice that the last couple of years we've really increased the number of preventive maintenance orders. So in 2014 we were about 1,000, 2015 we were at 4,000, 2016 we were at 7,400, and this year we're at 8,000 preventive work orders. Now, you can imagine I probably got a little pushback on my team. I tell them we gave you 8,000 work orders. You know you're going to have to do every day, because it's the total up to about 20,000 work orders a year that we do now. The neatest thing that you see on this graph is that between this year and last year, the total work orders stayed the same. The preventive work orders went up 700. So that means we did 700 less work orders that were called in because something was wrong. And that's what I told the team. I said, what's happening here is your preventive work orders are going to stay the same. We're not going to keep giving you 500, 600 every year. We're about where we're at now. But as we do a better job of maintaining our equipment, then we'll get calls and repair calls that are going to do this, and we're already seeing the second year of this. And so teams buy into it. They're getting it, and it's a good thing for our equipment. It's going to be a good thing for our equipment and the environment they're trying to maintain. And this is our emergency work orders. So we are running at 0.18 or 0.16% over the last 2 years on emergency work orders. These are things that would take a school down. So, I mean, these are the things that shut down school. It could be smoking built on a unit that brings smoke to the building. It could be a water main break. It could be electrical. It could be a sewer backup that actually could impact the school, and we'd have those on occasion. It's just a toilet in the room that we can close off. That's not an emergency. We still have school. We just use that particular restroom. But we've had some sewer backups that did have the ability to take down schools, such as Hanover here. So that's what an emergency order is, and we're really in a good position on that. We don't get a lot of true emergencies anymore. Other facility KPS, Juliet's group has done extensive 10-year study of air quality problems. One of the things that we wanted to try to do was get in front of was, are there any trends at any of our schools in a classroom that has an air quality problem, or at our school or an area? And so they went back and reviewed all of the IAQ requests reports for all schools and pulled that data together, and now we're putting plans together in place. We really don't have any glowing things that are out there that we're really worried about, but we are using that data now to put some real programs together to make sure that we address issues that come up in the past. It's been good. I think it's been eye-opening from the standpoint that we don't have any major recurring, but it's also been a good basis for us to work off of to put together a program that issues that are out there for our indoor air quality. The benchmark study I mentioned about the 5-day turn on our grounds. That was one of our benches, and then some work on blitz cleaning. So 2016, we had 20 custodians clean 6 buildings. This last year, we had 25 custodians clean 5 buildings. Blitz cleaning is a great tool if we can get the resources available and if the buildings are available to clean. So as buildings are being used more with the Rockwood Parkway partnership, it is impacting our ability to expand this program out. We are looking at ways to continue to utilize blitz cleaning, but it can be problematic from expanding the program just because of where buildings are being used. And it's more important that the buildings being used to their extent. We'll figure out a way to get them clean. So that's what we're working on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
All right. Well, I don't have as many fun graphs and charts as everyone else, which is funny because I spend my whole day making charts and graphs, right? Except when I come to my own department. Well, I guess we're more goal. We had goal-based when I started. I think you'll see a common theme is just trying to reduce how much paper systems we had. One of the big ones we implemented last year around this time, it's going to share, was our benefit system is now online. It used to be, started, you got 50, 60-page packet just for your benefits to sign up. Now you can go online and do it. You still have a packet if you want it, but we can send you a link to it, hopefully print it out. That's done really well. We have about 1,000 people so far this year who have signed up out of 2,500, so hopefully by the end of enrollment we can get close to 2,000. So as part of that, too, we try to get to every school with a monthly meeting or a budget meeting every year, or I'm too tired. A benefit meeting, we try to get to every school and talk to people face-to-face about their benefits. We started doing that 3 years ago. The response has been good. We go to some schools and just 2 or 3 people go, but it still gives everybody at the school a chance to talk about the benefits because the district provides such a good benefit package. We want to talk about that and let people know that benefits make up about 2% of your salary. When you think about it, we have better health insurance, better vision than your other district. So we should say at Parkway, we work really hard to get that message out. Another thing we try to do is with the Lake Start meetings every month, we try to meet with the benefits, our budget secretaries. And by meeting with those, we kind of improve our policies. We get everybody on board, changing how we're using the system, when we're going to list invoicing, better requisitions. We'll work with purchasing to get the word out. And it lets all budget secretaries at the school who are on the ground floor with these finance decisions put everybody on the same page and get good feedback on that. And again, we do that every time there's a late start meeting, we meet with them. And in the summer before school starts, we have a full day seminar with them to discuss, what's changed in finance, what we should look out for. So the, just the important items that come with finance. And we have some new goals that we're working on currently. The biggest one we're doing now is DESE has changed the rules for our account codes. I know this is going to sound ridiculous. We have 20,000 account codes that we use. So every location, you have different codes based on the program, the function of it, it's salaries, it's the benefits, the general supplies, and the instructional supply. They have quick. So what DESE told us is you have to change these. So we have 20,000 codes with 17 digits, and we got to change them. So that's actually a very time-consuming project we're doing now. And we can only do it when no one else is in our financial software. So it's a lot of setting during the week to run the report on the evenings and weekends. I can't say I've done much of it. We have a supervisor has done a lot of that. She runs them from homes, and you get it running, and then an hour later you got to check, make sure it's doing. And it's probably our biggest ongoing project. The other big thing we're looking to do this year is a mayor's budget award. It's kind of with our financial packet. We get that. Not only does our auditor check, we send it to the ASBO to say they see. comprehensive annual financial report, just meet all these requirements as far as are we disclosing what we should disclose. And we've gotten, as you know, 15 years and hopefully 16 years with the newest one. Well, there's a similar one for the budget. I mean, I think our budget as is very close to meeting that, so hopefully we can expand our annual budget a little bit this year with the information to get that more next year. I touched on this briefly too. We want to upgrade our timekeeping system. Right now, if you work 2 jobs, say you're a dietary aide and you drive buses, one of those jobs is going to be a paper timesheet. If you're a teacher and you work in summer school, paper timesheet. So imagine we get stacks of paper timesheets. That's not efficient. Sometimes the timesheets get lost, and that's not fair to the employee. So if we can find a way to get that all electronic, that's where we want to be. And then this is just some of our KPIs. Our P-card rebate, it's double since FY 4 years ago. We're trying to keep that growing just by using P-card more, which is a credit card that we sign out to employees. It's important to use that because it also cuts down on the paper reimbursements. We have more control over it. You know, there's limits when you use a P-card. You can't buy alcohol, cigarettes, things like that. And there's a purchasing limit on those as well. Our voided checks, the number we have now around 200 is normal. A lot of our voided checks now are just people don't cash them. Of the 231 voided checks we had last year, I would actually say about 150 of them were just employees not cashing checks. We give like a $10 mileage reimbursement, things like that. We used to have a lot more voided checks, and it was just basic errors that we were making in finance. And it really boiled down to people were checking their own work. When you check your own work, you're not going to get your own mistake. So we changed that, and we've really cut down our voided checks. The other change we're making is our PSRS payments. We have to make those by the 10th of every month, have the information submitted. We have for 2 years now done 100% of the time. 3 years ago, that was a big issue, and before that, we were always hovering around only doing it about half the time. And just one that we've been trying to improve is our 403, 457 participation. I know the PSRS year's plan is great, but people also save for themselves in the future. So we've been trying to push that out, get it to the new hire. We were doing really good last year, and then I would say 40 of the people that retired had one. So really, it kind of negated all of our gains because we got all these people sign up, but then all these people left at the same time too. So, but I'll turn it over to Jason.
We're almost there, guys. So warm here, or is it just me? So, KPIs for the technology department. Obviously, Nicole Galloway, the state auditor, kind of put schools in limelight with her cyber safe school audits. And the product that came out of that is a consortium that we're part of, a national consortium we're part of, COSIN, developed the trusted learning environment. And so one of our KPIs is documented data security processes and procedures. And as part of that, to get to that KPI, we're adopting what COSIN developed as the trusted learning environment. A framework we really like. It was developed by 28 schools across 20 districts from across the nation, and has only been obtained by 12 school districts, one district in the state of Missouri, and hopefully will be the second school district. It's a really high bar to set for ourselves, but it would put us in that top echelon with regards to school districts that have very, very well organized security data practices in the nation. Our second KPI, the ability to provide additional services and support with flat or declining staffing numbers. This is done through really working smarter, not harder. So as we've adopted new projects, new services, whether it's Schoology or Alt Project, Clever or Follett, we've looked at ways that we can automate things or audit processes, or looked at how to integrate with other things. And then what this allowed us to do is expand the services that we can provide our students and staff while not having to add additional staff members. Some of that has been putting things into the cloud. A perfect example would be adoption of Google as a systemic tool across the district. We were able to move all of our staff members to Gmail, which is something that is no longer kept in-house. Google's managing, maintaining, and enhancing that, and we don't have to add additional staff members to support. So we're doing really, really well on that API. Another KPI that was one of my favorites, decreased use of equipment made from conflict minerals. The reason this was my favorite is because it was brought to us by students. We had 2 Central High students that came to us, brought this issue of conflict minerals, specifically minerals coming out of the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and brought the issue to attention. We developed it into a KPI, and we're off to a really good start. The issue we have right now is that with the current federal administration, they're repealing Dodd-Frank Act, which is the act that required companies to report where their minerals were, the minerals that for the materials were sourced from. So the data we would have used to measure this KPI is no longer available to us. Now, Dodd-Frank isn't completely repealed as far as I know, but there's some major chunks, this being one of them, that was taken out of it. So I'm putting this one on hold for right now, only because we don't have, it was tough to measure when Dodd-Frank was in place, and now that it's being repealed, it's almost impossible to find numbers that we need to accurately measure it. And going along that same lines, one of our KPIs is decreased energy consumption as related to technology equipment. And I really got to give kudos to Eric Luters for pushing us in this area and supporting us in this area and helping us adopt tools like our Cisco Energy Management tool, which allows to monitor energy consumption of our computing devices, as well as it's not so much energy consumption, but material consumption, as well as managed print services, which is really giving us kind of a view into our print apps within the district with the goal of reducing overall print. So what we're seeing is we've reduced the number of traditional labs. Labs were a huge consumer of energy, and with the adoption of the ALL project and students having Chromebooks, we're getting rid of a lot of labs, which is decreasing our energy consumption, also increasing the utility of space. We're moving classrooms into what formerly were labs. We're also seeing decreased energy consumption in our DIS center. That actually came out of the 2014 bond, where we were able to implement new cooling methods as well as new equipment and get rid of old server equipment that consumed a lot of information. The graph there is basically from left to right. I mean, we were here, so we're here right now. Here's where we were. The difference is negative. So we are improving our energy consumption across the district. Staffing, this is specific to our staffing in the building. So as we look at what the ratio of devices to our techs that are in the building, we have a ratio of about 1,000 devices to one tech, which is way high. So we got our techs supporting a lot of devices, and I would say that's even a very conservative estimate. One of the things that we're going to look at doing with the staffing is we're going to look at how we can put more support directly into the buildings. So making sure that our front line is well supported with those that are interacting directly with students and teachers on an everyday basis. So where we're going, technology, next steps. It was fun to put this presentation together, but we as a team are actually putting together brand new goals and brand new KPIs. So we've got a draft of 4 new goals that the department is working on right now, and in February we'll be writing a whole department new KPIs around our new goals. This will all be changing by the next time next year when I present this to you again, potentially. And with that, I will turn it back over to Patty.
Right, thank you very much. As most of you have heard me say, every day is a great day in Parkway, and I have to say it's because the leaders that we have that I can work with that makes that all come to fruition. So some of our top priorities for this year, of course, is completion of our bond work from the 2014 bond and work on the upcoming ballot issue for November 2018. Of course, our goal is always to have an audit without findings, so an unqualified and modified report. Grow our operating fund balances at least by the 0.25%. Continue working with zero-based budgeting with all of our administrators, maintaining our AAA bond rating, implementing a new purchasing policy for construction services. Mike and Scott have been working along with Eric to look at the MSBA guidelines for construction services and to move our policy into those constraints. Continue to enhance our internal controls. Demographic study, of course, and a review of our use of facilities. In July, we added 10 new CNG buses. That was with the assistance of $290,000 from a DEER grant. So certainly that helped to offset the cost of the CNG buses versus the diesel fuel. And with our increase in diesel fuel, we have diesel fuel prices that we have over the last few months. It seems like a brilliant decision that we made. Benefits and wellness programming. So continue to focus on our wellness efforts there in order to lower our long-term costs. I know at our subcommittee meeting, we talked about our timeline for our healthcare clinic. So certainly diving into that and hopefully finding an option that will be a low-cost option for the district and beneficial for our employees and members would be great. Flexible allocation of staff, that's something that we do on a daily basis, and also our continued focus on reducing our energy. So whether it is from Eric's leadership, Jason's leadership, it's truly all of our leadership that makes it truly happen. So now this time I open it up to you if you have any questions.
I promise I'll keep this short. I promise. I know. But first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody here who puts the report together. This is a lot of information, and I certainly appreciate it. And so thank you very much for that. So one thing, going to the retirement thing and people trying to make a contribution to retirement plans, my particular employer just went to mandatory retirement savings. And so they actually, if they see that employees are not making a contribution to retirement, they pull money out of your paycheck to put into a savings plan. Apparently this must be legal because they're doing it. So I don't know if you guys have thought about that or not.
So,
It's what we be asked of another place. So,
Correct.
So what PSRS, if you're a teacher, you're paid 14.5% of your salary, and then operating.
We do have that?
yes, that's mandatory for any full-time employee. So if you're a certified staff member working more than 17 hours, you have no option but 14.5% to be withheld from your check. And then there's a match from the district also that is paid. And for an operations staff member, it's anyone working over 20 hours a week, and that's 6.86%. So from the employee check. So what's really beneficial in our options that we offer is if you use the tax-deferred options in the 403 or the 457, and you have years to buy back. So for me, I was in a different industry before I came into the school district industry. I can buy back some of those Social Security qualified years in order to help my retirement, lower my retirement age, essentially. So for teachers, that's also a mechanism to buy back. What? Oh, okay. I'm like, well, yes, I can do that. Well, thank you. But teachers, they're also able to do that as well.
Okay.
So that's beneficial. So, for instance, Dr. Marty, he could look at his years that he was in a different state, and he could then buy back those years as well. Okay. We also offer post-tax for 457, and that is the Roth options as well.
Great. And my other question is with regard to our fund balance. I know that we were saying it is growing by 0.25%, and I look up in our policies, and I'm not finding where we say where we want that targeted fund balance to be. I mean, what percentage of fund balance should be our goal as a minimum?
So we purposely did not put a maximum. We purposely did not put a maximum in there. We're looking at that because really it's a combination of our operating fund balance and our capital fund balance. Our real goal is to eliminate our need for borrowing the hands. So right now, interest rates are on the rise. We currently need to borrow the temporary borrowings in November, part of December. Our long-term goal is to eliminate that and actually have investments that go out longer than our 9 months. Currently, we're maximized at. So as we approach that and get to the point where we no longer have to borrow, I think at that point in time we'll decide what is that optimum operating fund balance that we need to be at.
Do you have an idea of what that's at, where we no longer have to borrow?
I would assume it's going to be close. Well, it's going to be a combination of our operating funds and capital projects fund. So I'm going to say between 22 and 24%.
Okay.
It might be lower as our capital projects fund grows.
Okay.
We had that discussion about what we really pushed.
Yeah, I remember.
But one of the things was that actually I think the Moody's is more concerned about the discipline. You can set a goal and never get there. So the discipline, at least we're working on a steady basis on 0.25. So,
Right.
So I think that's been looked kindly by Moody's. They even made that a point in the last review.
Yeah, and I remember that discussion. It's just that, I've seen other companies where they are at very high fund balances, and so it's like, how long do we want to keep this going? At what point are we going to say, okay, we've got enough fund balance that we need to stop and start tapering down so that we're not in excess of, ridiculous.
Absolutely. Well, and that's important to our staff members as well, because if we need to continually attract and retain highly qualified employees as well. So if we do not increase salaries along with the industry and bypass that by going to fund balance, I think we may be making a mistake at that point. So we have to kind of balance all of that together and continuing needs for our students as well.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Patty. You're welcome. These guys did a lot of the work, and so did Joe Peasel. So.
Wait, tomorrow is Old Newsboys Day.
That's right.
And certain of the board presidents have to be on street corners selling newspapers at 6 a.m. at Ladue Lindbergh. So I expect everybody to come with their dollar bills tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and buy a paper from me, okay? It's for children's charities. All right, let's see. Yeah, that's great. 14.0. No, it's a green apron. Yeah. There we go. Okay, 14.0 work session done. 15.0 call for special meeting done. 16.0, thank you. Next scheduled closed session is anticipated to be held on December 6, 2017 at 6 p.m. Central Middle School. Details of the closed session will be posted within 20 hours of the anticipated meeting. Recess closed session. Don't need that. We have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Are you sure? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for your attendance. Home.
Winter coats this time.
We just turned the thermostat up. Can we have a resolution to increase the temperature?